Welcome to the Fantasy Football Endgame with your hosts, Pierre and Chris Mangano.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Endgame. Stop what you're doing. Hit that subscribe button right now. You're not going to want to miss all of our weekly content. We're here to talk fantasy football, of course, every single week. Start set advice for running back, wide receiver, tight end, and quarterback. Here to help you win and dominate your league. I'm Pierre Camo. With me is Chris Mangano, and we are here with the end game result, which is to win. And we're going to tell you for some of our top start sit decisions, guys that you might be kind of on the fence about, put in your wide receiver 3 spot, your flex spot. What do you do with these guys? Okay, we're going to help you decide based on matchup, advanced stats, and of course, our own gut intuition. We've been doing this for a while, so I think we kind of have a good sense of what's going on here. Chris, it's time for wide receivers. Thankfully, we're done talking about running backs because they're just all hurt. We don't want to talk about that anymore. But then there's a lot of receivers that are hurt too. So I don't think we can go anywhere without seeing so many injuries. What the worst thing is for me is so many guys that are questionable, and it's all about the hamstring, and they kind of practiced but didn't. They didn't play last week. They're going to play this week. And, guy who all of a sudden pops on the injury report. I don't know what to do with A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, right? All these guys, Devontae Adams, I think he's going to play. I mean, there's some guys you kind of have to borrow a phrase, leave the light on for, but there's some guys you kind of don't. So how quickly do you pivot? Are you waiting till like the minute before game time to see, do I take Julio out of my lineup, or did you leave him in there by default? What do you do with that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, for a guy like Julio, well, here's the thing. It's only Wednesday. Wednesday practice doesn't matter. Thursday practice kind of matters. So if the guy's not practicing on Thursday, you can start getting nervous. Friday practice really matters. If a guy's not practicing Friday, almost surely will not play on Sunday. Julio Jones might be the only exception. I don't even know if that guy ever practices. Every week, it's his foot, it's his hammy, it's his thumb, it's his whatever, and then he shows up on Sunday and plays, and he's fine. So, yeah, but certainly with those guys, I mean, you should have other options, I would hope, than those guys. But,
Yeah.
as long as they're not playing Monday.
With Julio, the problem with Julio is he did play, and then I wish he didn't, because everyone had in his lineup, then he got you nothing. You know what I mean? So I almost wish that I would have put somebody else in, right?
But in fairness, he had a 42-yard touchdown go right through his hands, which he catches I can't say 100% of the time because he didn't catch it, but almost 100% of the time. If he catches that, now he's got like a 15, 16-point day. Okay, you're not like dancing circles, but you're fine. You're okay with it. So certainly some concern, but if Friday's when I get nervous. Wednesday, I don't care if the guy's practicing or not on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You got to wait. But, I get it with like Julio and Devontae Adams. Of course, you start him. But, A.J. Brown, he's pretty much a solid wide receiver too based on draft status. But is that a guy that if he plays, you play him like with 100% confidence? Because if you got a limited A.J. Brown, is that better than somebody who you might be able to put in his place? You know what I mean? You have somebody who's a little more fringy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. It depends who your other options are, of course, always. But, yeah, definitely guys like that, you got to take that into consideration.
All right. So, and, we get questions all the time on, social media, and people ask, do I start this guy? Do I drop this guy? I said, well, who else do you have? Like, it matters, right? Like, do I play him? Well, who would you play instead? So it's all about your roster construction. If you have specific questions, throw them on the comments section here, right? So we can answer your questions. Let's get to some specific players, and a guy that I know I started wherever I had him last week, and again, wish I didn't. That's Anthony Miller. Talking about a ball going right through your hands in this case, I think it bounced off the breadbasket. So after that, he pretty much just disappeared. I don't know if that was a coaching decision or Mr. Trubisky just saying like, look, I got better options, even though he doesn't, because he didn't throw it to Allen Robinson either. Okay, we're going to play Allen Robinson against this trash secondary in Atlanta. Are you playing Anthony Miller with any sort of confidence, though, after what happened last week? You think he's going to bounce back?
Man, I was really high on Anthony Miller coming into the season, and I know it's only one game, but you've got to be a little bit concerned when the guy gets 3 targets and no catches, and Darnell Mooney is getting red zone looks and getting end zone passes thrown his way. Because we know Allen Robinson is going to get his. So, I mean, it's a great matchup. I want to say yes, start Anthony Miller, feel great about it, but I can't feel great about starting Anthony Miller after when a guy gets only 3 targets and no catches. You can't feel great. I mean, even if he caught 2 of those passes, how great are you going to feel about a guy getting 3 targets? So, I don't know. I mean, I think he'll obviously be better this week because you can't be worse than no catches for no yards. I mean, I don't know, maybe if you catch the ball and then fumble or something, you could be worse. But, I mean, really, it's hard. So, but I don't want him in my lineups. I got to keep him on my bench this week.
Yeah, the matchup is so tempting. Again, there's a trust issue here, not just with him specifically, but this offense. And, you know, I kind of mentioned this in the running back issue episode. I don't think this is necessarily going to be a high-scoring game, you know. So, yeah, hopefully you do have a better option. He's not an absolute must-sit, you know, but I think the end game here is that you don't want to start Miller if you don't have to.
Yeah.
A.J. Green, you'd think he's a must-start. I don't really know what to make of A.J. Green because he's getting a ton of targets, but he's not catching them. And there was a lot of talk, you know, especially we're going back and forth on Thursday night. They just keep throwing his way, and it just is not happening. But the good news is they keep throwing his way, and he's, in fact, the leader in air yards, total air yards. And it's not even close, actually. There's only one other player who we're going to talk about next. There's only one other player who's within 100 air yards of A.J. Green. That's how much he's getting the ball thrown his way. All right, so are you believing in the targets, or are you worried about the lack of connection there?
Oh, yes. I do believe A.J. Green is going to have better days ahead. I do believe A.J. Green is going to finish as a top 24 wide receiver, maybe even top 15 by the time the season's over, because he's running so many routes and getting so many targets that just historically it's very, very, very rare, assuming he stays healthy, of course, that somebody runs that many routes and gets that many targets and doesn't finish as a top 24 wide receiver. It does happen, but it's very rare. That being said, I don't think this is the week because even though that Eagles secondary isn't the greatest, they did add Darius Slay, and he's going to be shadowed by Darius Slay in week 1. Or last week he was shadowed by Denzel Ward. In week 1 he was shadowed by, I forget who they played, but he was shadowed by somebody. And now he's going to draw shadow coverage again from a very good corner. And even though he's got all those air yards, and I love air yards, and I think it's a great stat, if the balls that are getting thrown to him aren't catchable, then those air yards really aren't any good. And he's getting a lot of targets, and there's definitely some catchable balls that we're used to A.J. Green bringing down, like prime A.J. Green. But this is A.J. Green, hasn't played in almost 2 years, trying to get his sea legs back, so to speak. So there's definitely been some plays where he probably could have come down with it, but there's also a lot of plays where Burrow isn't even close. As far as, you know, he's just forcing the ball. Like, A.J. Green's not even open. He's just forcing the ball in there anyways. So I don't mind A.J. Green as like a flex play this week because you know he's going to get 10-plus targets probably. And he's got 6 end zone targets, which is amazing. Like for receivers, that's gold. To have the ball thrown to you while you're standing in the end zone is gold because it makes it a lot easier to catch a touchdown, obviously. So I definitely think there's upside there. I'm a little nervous about the Slay matchup. I do think better days are ahead. I'd prefer not to start A.J. Green this week if I didn't have to, but I could definitely see him as a flex in like deeper leagues.
Yeah, it's really tough to read. And, you know, my first instinct when I saw Philadelphia, I said, oh, great. You know, that's pretty much a funnel defense, right? Tough against the run and give up a lot of passing yards. But that's more last year, the year before. They totally redid the secondary, which they needed to, right? They got rid of guys like, you know, Crevon LeBron, and they added Darius Slay, among others. So it's not the same Eagles secondary that we remember, right? So this is not an easy game matchup. To me, I guess I'm though a little more optimistic just because I got to chase the targets, right? And I think because especially we know he's going to get the red zone targets. I think they keep forcing it to him enough. He's going to start coming down with him. So I feel he's more like a wide receiver 3 this week. So I guess he's not a must start, but I think if I have him, I'm probably testing him out. All right, let's move on to the guy we just mentioned, DeSean Jackson. That same matchup there in Cincinnati. Guess who's number 2 in total air yards? It's DeSean Jackson. That's not surprising because, he pretty much always gets the ball 50 yards down the field. But he also hasn't done a whole lot with it. He doesn't have a touchdown yet, right? Some of those big plays, which we really thought were going to happen in what was a total smash spot. So he hasn't really paid off yet. But at the same time, he's getting targets, he's getting air yards. Philadelphia's got to throw to somebody, right? There's really nobody else still there to throw other than the tight end. So are you feeling okay flexing him out?
I mean, I'm not feeling okay about it. He's a home run. If you need a home run, if you're playing like maybe the number one team who hasn't had any injuries and just is stacked from top to bottom, and you need some 30-point game, then yeah, I feel okay about DeSean Jackson. The Eagles are targeting tight ends more than any other team, which makes sense. They got Miles Sanders back. That Bengals rush defense is horrendous. I think it's going to be a Miles Sanders game. I think it's going to be a Zach Ertz game. I think it's going to be a Dallas Goedert game. Not a lot left for DeSean Jackson, but he's always capable of one big touchdown or something. So, yeah, if you need a home run, you need a Hail Mary, you're decimated by injuries, I'm okay with it as like a upside flex play, but I can't view him as anything more than that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, he is what he is. The end game here is you treat Djax the way you always do. He's a boom bust play. You're hoping for a long touchdown, and if he doesn't hit it, then you're not getting too much else. So roll the dice if you need to, I guess. We always roll the dice when we have Will Fuller on a roster, don't we? That's pretty much what he is. And man, that 0 really stung last week. He played. He just was limited, shockingly. Hamstring injury. Another time where somebody was out there, didn't think he was going to be injured. Of course, it's Will Fuller. We should have known better. So besides the fact that he's Will Fuller and he's battling injury again, he's going against the Steelers this week. Can we trust him this week in any way? And can we ever trust him again?
Yes, I think we can definitely trust him again. As far as this week, definitely got to watch. This is a guy you definitely got to watch the injury report on. I definitely pay attention to Thursday and Friday because this is a guy that if he's not 100% or if he's like, oh, we're not sure if he's going to be okay to play, you probably don't want him in your lineup because you run the risk that he goes out there, plays a series or two, and limps off the field, and you get a goose egg from him again, right? But one good thing about this matchup is the Steelers are a much better defense against the run than against the pass. Now, they're not like the worst pass defense around, but they're much better against the run than the pass. So I think and Houston likes to pass the ball. They're not a running team. So I think he's going to have his opportunities, assuming he's healthy and he's on the field. But I'd view him more like a wide receiver 3 with upside.
Definitely. I mean, the upside's there. We know that. All right. They're going to try to go to him as much as they can, right? Fuller is the receiver of choice now. But that's if he's healthy. And to me, I mean, it's just because, once you have Will Fuller, you already know what's going to happen. And it's just so hard, right? It's just so hard to put him in there knowing, okay, here we go. I'm going to be a real idiot if it happens again. I put him on my lineup and I get another 0. I should have seen it coming, right? So it's hard. Like, I can't pull the trigger, right? Because look what happened last week. And in a bad matchup, like, I just can't. I'm sorry. To me, it's just I have to see him on the field for the whole game and involved. And then maybe next week I can go back to him. And I won't feel bad if he goes off for a long touchdown because I said, well, it happens. Actually, let's go with T.Y. Hilton. This is another guy who's kind of a deep threat, right? This kind of a recurring theme here. These are these players that kind of make their hay by stretching the field. Could hit on a big play or could do nothing. T.Y. Hilton's done a lot of nothing. He also had a bad drop. I don't remember if it was in the end zone or if it was just before the end zone. He had a touchdown, and he just muffed it, right? I've got to think with Paris Campbell now on IR and Jack Doyle, it doesn't look like he'll play again. Hilton's got to pay off at some point, right? I mean, and here's the thing. They're playing the Jets. Can you not start him against the Jets?
No, I think you definitely have to start him. The problem here is what we saw last week where they just ran. And I think Phillip Rivers only threw the ball like 23 times or 24 times. I think we're going to see something similar to that again because it's the Jets. The Jets aren't going to be able to move the ball on this defense. They're going to be no threat. Indy knows they're no threat. Just run the ball. Take it, don't take any chances. Don't do anything crazy. Don't let Phillip Rivers throw a pick six or something that can change the game, the momentum of the game. So I think you're okay starting him, but to me, he's more like a wide receiver 3 this week. Even though you look at it and you say, oh, it's the Jets, okay, but I mean, how many targets are we really expecting him to get in this game this week, right? I just don't see enough volume there. Unless he scores a touchdown or something, I don't really see how he puts up a big week.
No, he won't need to get a lot of targets. He probably won't, but I guess to me, I just feel like he'll only need maybe 3 or 4 targets to get 3 or 4 catches for like 90 yards into the touchdown, maybe 2. Because it's the Jets. Like, come on. They won't need to throw, but they'll will just because they can. And the thing is, the Jets, to some extent, not the extent that people on Reddit apparently think, that the Jets' run defense is like amazing and awesome, and that everything else about them is terrible. But you can't start running backs against the Jets because that's the only thing they do well. But they don't do it that well, all right?
Yeah.
As Jerick McKinnon showed, and last week it was like, don't start the running backs. Yeah, glad you missed out on that 80-yard touchdown by Raheem Mostert. But anyway,
didn't McKinnon convert 3rd and 31 on a draw play?
He did against the dominating Jets front line. But anyways, yeah, Taylor's going to get the ball, a ton. But I feel like Hilton will finally connect on that big play. So I feel pretty good about him. I mean, yeah, it's still a little risky, but I like him better than some of those other riskier plays. So speaking of riskier plays, Giants. The New York Giants, the football team I'm talking about, they have issues. Now, besides their obvious issues at running back, let's talk about receiver. First, it was Tate. Now he's back. And then now Sterling Shepard going on IR. You would think, well, this is going to mean, guys like Slayton and Tate, if he's healthy, might be solid plays, right? Because they got no running back. I'm sorry. They got Devontae Freeman. But they don't have their main guy. They don't have Shepard. Maybe those are 2 receivers kind of pick up the slack. But they're going against the 49ers.
Yeah, but
What range do you feel? And if you had to pick one, who do you have ahead, Tate or Slayton?
Yeah, it's a good question. First, in regards, this is not the 49ers. That the defensive line is decimated, including Nick Bosa, so they're not going to get pressure like we're used to seeing them. They're missing 3 corners, including Richard Sherman, so they're not going to have that lockdown coverage that we're used to seeing. So I actually do like both Slayton and Tate this week, and Ingram. I like this whole passing attack, to be honest with you, because no Shepard, no Barkley. That frees up a lot of targets. Now a passing attack that's usually got 5 mouths to feed only has to feed 3. So I do like this week. Slayton for sure has way more upside than Tate, right? He's a big play guy. He's going to get the ball down the field more. But Tate is a very nice, safe flex play with some upside, right? He can always score a touchdown or something. He's not going to catch a 50-yard pass, more than likely. So I like Slayton as like a wide receiver 3, maybe borderline 2, but with some upside. And I like Tate as like a solid floor flex play.
Yeah, I feel like Tate should be pretty solid. I think he's going to get pretty high volume here, right? And they're going to want to tell Daniel Jones, like, look, don't turn it over 10 times. Don't force it. He'll still take his shots. Sure, Slayton always has a chance to go off, but I feel like Tate's kind of the biggest winner here. I think Ingram, obviously, too. We'll talk about him in the tight end episode, but yeah, I feel pretty good about Tate in PPR, right? Full PPR leagues.
Yeah, full PPR.
And then Slayton, I mean, you never know when he's going to go off. So, I would take Slayton over some of the guys we already mentioned, like DeSean Jackson. So I feel like even though it's the 49ers, you think, well, that's a tougher matchup, fade it. I think I feel better about him based on how this offense will run more through the passing game as opposed to what you said, Philadelphia. It's going to be Miles Sanders. It's going to be Zach Ertz. It's going to be those guys. So, all right, we've covered several receivers, but now it's time to get to the exciting part, boom and bust. Our booms and busts of the week, guy you think is going to go off, maybe exceed expectations, maybe be a potential week winner, and then a guy who is just going to let you down. All right, so start with your boom.
I'm going out to Detroit for a guy who's been disappointing so far, and that's Marvin Jones. Nope, not Kenny Golladay, although I do like Kenny Golladay this week. I think having Kenny Golladay back is going to be a huge boost to Marvin Jones. And this matchup against Arizona, Vegas has set the over-under at 55, which is an insanely high total. I think this is going to be a back-and-forth track meet type of game. And I think the Cardinals are going to focus on Galladay, and this is going to be the week where Jones busts out. So I like Marvin Jones as my boom.
Yeah, funny because, everyone thought, oh, Galladay's gone, Jones is going to eat. It doesn't work that way. When you're a secondary receiver, Jones has never been the guy like the alpha. He's going to benefit now because he's not going to draw the top coverage. And actually, it was surprising to looking at some PFF's grades. Patrick Peterson, he's going to shadow. He hasn't been very good this year so far. He's still a good corner, don't get me wrong, but maybe not what we expect from years past. So,
but even if he does, he's going to shadow Galladay, not Jones.
Right, exactly. So, all right, I'm on board with that. Yeah, I'm a big Jones guy. I got him several places. I'm going to go with a guy who's definitely boom bust. I feel like that's the theme of this week for a receiver, a guy who, can make that really big play or maybe not. He hasn't done it yet, but McCole Hardman, because Sammy Watkins had his week one. He's done, right? And he's got the concussion issues. I feel like this is a chance for him to make that big play. They're going to get him a little bit more involved. And so going against Baltimore, his specific cornerback wide receiver matchup is actually pretty good. So now, of course, that doesn't always mean everything. They move guys around, especially Kansas City does this a lot. But Hardman going against Marlon Humphrey, who solid, not spectacular, definitely beatable. He's been toasted a few times in his career. So I'd take a chance on Hardman if you need a boom play. I like his chances. All right, what about your bust?
Yeah, I'm going with Robert Woods against Buffalo. He's going to more than likely be shadowed by Tre'Davious White, who's one of the game's best shadow corners. The Rams will move him around a little bit. They probably won't move him to the slot much because that's Cooper Kupp, but they'll move him. They'll put him in motion. They'll throw those screen passes to him. So I don't expect him to get completely shut down, but I think this is more like a 10 to 12 point game for him rather than I just don't think there's a lot of ceiling here. I think he'll still give you an okay floor, but no real ceiling here. Not quite what we're used to or expecting from Robert Woods.
All right, so you got the former Bill, now a Ram. I'm going to go with the current Bill going against the Rams. On the other side of this equation here, I'm going with John Brown, and I know he's my boy, right? But not this week because he has this actually surprisingly tough matchup going against Darius Williams, who's been lights out this year. Not a guy you really know, not a name that you recognize, but third year at corner, he's stepping up, right? He could have kind of that breakout season. So far, right? I know it's been 2 weeks. So far, doing a really good job. And I just feel like, this Buffalo passing game is going to regress. It's just going to, right? And the Rams have definitely a better pass rush than the Dolphins did last week and anyone the Bills have faced so far, right? Let's just face it. The Bills have been feasting on inferior competition so far. So, I think he's going to get, I say completely shut out, but I feel like it's definitely a week to fade him. All right. Don't fade us. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. We're here each and every week. And, hit us up with your comments here. Let us know what's your lineup question, right? Who you want help with at wide receiver. So many options, so many questions. Of course, check the injury reports all the way up until game time. Make the smart decisions, right? Because that one flex play that you put in at the last second, that could be the difference between winning and losing. And we want you to win. All right. Thanks for watching.